Montana is a great place to find gold. It's produced a huge amount, and it's a great place for prospectors. A lot of guys are successful, like gals, are successful in finding gold in Montana. Now there's a huge amount that's come. There's actually 17 counties that have produced more than 10,000 ounces of gold, and in those 17 counties, there's 54 mining districts. Like I say, that have each of the mining districts have produced more than 10,000 ounces of gold. And in fact, there's 27 of those mining districts that have produced more than 100,000 ounces of gold. So there's a huge amount of gold in Montana, and we're going to talk about the geology, we're going to talk about the history, and we're going to talk about the opportunities for you to go find yourself some gold in Montana. So stick with me, we're going to go into it. Let's start by taking a look at some of the gold from Montana. We've got some nuggets and some other things to look at, some ore specimens. Let's take a look at the gold of Montana and get oriented with that.
I sometimes get people who ask me, does Montana really produce any big nuggets or coarse gold that I could find with a metal detector? Well, here's a nugget that weighs 27.5 ounces from Montana. It's the Highland Centennial nugget, and it was found in 1989. I don't think it was found with a metal detector, but I assure you, there are large nuggets in Montana and that are found with metal detectors. And there's, of course, also fine gold too, but there definitely are large nuggets. Here's an 81-gram nugget, and this was found with a metal detector, and it has got a lot of quartz, but it also has a lot of gold, and I'd guess that there's at least 2 ounces of gold here, which makes it pretty valuable. Now here's a 53-gram nugget from Montana, but I don't want you to get the idea that all of Montana's gold is big, coarse, multi-ounce nuggets. Here's 13 nuggets that were found by metal detector in Montana, and they only weigh a total of 5 grams, so the average here is around 0.4 of a gram, and you might consider this to be a more typical find with a metal detector or other prospecting, sluicing, and stuff in Montana. And Montana does have its fine gold too, no doubt about that. This is some real nice gold that was collected by a commercial operator that works on the placers of the Missouri River area and recovers both this kind of gold and also sapphires as well. And there's a number of places in Montana where you can get both gold and sapphires in the gravel that you treat. And of course, this piece is kind of dirty, so it doesn't look so great, but this is Montana gold from hard rock mines, and Montana has produced a whole lot of hard rock gold, including some incredibly rich specimens like this. Some of the gold is actually quite beautiful. This is a specimen piece with wire gold on quartz from the Norris mine. And although it's hard to see in this photo, this specimen of ore has both visible gold and visible telluride minerals. And there are districts in Montana with significant amounts of telluride, so you got to be aware of the potential for telluride minerals if you're working in any hard rock areas in Montana, because gold tellurides can be amazingly rich.
And Montana is a big producer. I estimate that it's produced more than 19 million ounces of gold, the state of Montana. And, it's just a heavy placer as well as lode producing state. Now, the original first placers were discovered there in 1852. But it was such a remote area at the time, and like I say, lack of infrastructure and supplies and that sort of thing, that there really wasn't a lot of work done until 1862, when the placers were discovered at Bannock, and then shortly afterwards, placers discovered at Alder Creek, and then shortly afterwards, placers discovered near Helena, Last Chance placer area, and then finally the placers at Butte. And it was just in a period of a few short years. And of course, when you have big discoveries that just go boom, 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 it attracts a huge influx of placer and other miners that are interested in the area. And there was a huge influx of folks. And of course, there were even more discoveries after, folks came in during that time. But by 1870 or so, the best of the placer deposits had been exhausted, and the lode mines began to take a more important position. And as the lode mines were developed, the sources of some of the placer gold were discovered, and there began to be more and more of the lode production. Now, most of the gold deposits in the state of Montana are located in the southwest part of the state. So let's take a look at a map and talk about it.
So here's the map of Montana, and you can see there in the southwest is where the real most intense grouping of mineral districts is, and that's the area that's associated with the boulder batholith of intrusive rocks, granitic rocks, that sort of thing. And the deposits are generally on the outer parts of the intrusions of granitic rock or in the adjoining metamorphic and other types of rock.
The principal mining districts in Montana are associated with the boulder batholith. This is a big area of intrusive granitic type rocks that spreads over, like I say, the southwest part of the state, because that's where the mineralization is. And, or at least most of the principal mineralization is in that area. And so a lot of these placer districts and the lode are associated with these granitic intrusive rocks, and the actual veins or deposits will be found either in the outer edge of the granitic rock or in the adjoining sedimentary or metamorphic rocks that adjoin to them. Now, I talked a little bit about the geology and stuff, but this is a geology that's actually very important in the western states. It's an important source of gold in Idaho, just next door to Montana. It's important in Colorado, a little bit to the south, important in Utah, and to a lesser extent important in California and Nevada and Arizona and some other places. So let's take a look at this specific geology of intrusive related gold deposits that's the source of so much gold in Montana and, like I say, adjoining states as well.
Here's a diagram that kind of explains it better. The pink rocks here is an underlying granitic rock that's been uplifted from down below. This is usually part of some sort of mountain building process. And where it contacts the older overlying metamorphic or other rocks that are above it, that's shown in green here, it tends to fracture and break those rocks, and it creates fault zones that allow the mineralized fluids that are coming off the core granitic batholith, the core granitic rocks from underneath. They circulate up through these fractures and faults. And they can be in the metamorphic rocks or in the upper part near the contact of the granitic rocks underneath. And I kind of showed that here as a kind of darker pink, purple kind of color. And so this kind of explains where the veins are located, only around the contact zones of these granitic intrusive rocks. But the boulder batholith in Montana is a huge area. And the part of the state where these intrusive rocks are found that, like I say, are either granite or monzonite or something like that, I've circled here with red. And it's no funny coincidence, but that's where the gold deposits are found. The main ones, the principal ones, are found here in Montana.
Now, I mentioned a little bit about the history. Let's dig in and take a further look at the history of mining in Montana. Like pretty much almost all places, most places, it started out when people found placer gold, and then as the placer got mined out, they tended to switch to the hard rock. And then they have a lot of hard rock mines in Montana. It's been huge placer and huge hard rock. It's not just dominant hard rock or dominant placer. It's been an equal share or near equal share of both. Some of the hard rock veins have some base metals. It's not unusual that you have base metals of copper or lead and other things with the gold in Montana. So let's take a look at the details of the history of mining in Montana.
Like I say, a lot of the early day mining was placer mining, and the miners quickly developed hydraulic workings and were able to use high pressure water to literally wash away hillsides of gold bearing gravel and recover the gold in them. This is Confederate Gulch near Helena, and it was one of the richest placers in all of the state of Montana. Just huge amounts of gold came out of here. Typically, when they mined these areas with the hydraulic water pressure, they would leave large flat areas like this where the gold-bearing gravel had been stripped off down to bedrock. And actually, these turn out to be really good places for prospectors to go look for gold, especially with metal detectors, because you're looking for cracks and crevices that the old-timers might not have noticed and might not have cleaned out. And as the placers played out, the miners turned to looking for the sources of the gold in the placer gravels, and they found veins and other deposits that they started working underground with. The underground mining took more capital and more work and more equipment and such to mine and process the quartz ore and get the gold out of it, and the miners developed some very extensive mine operations. And thousands of men worked deep underground, pulling out the high-grade ore and taking it out to the mill where it was processed to get the values out.
There are 54 districts in Montana that have produced more than 10,000 ounces of gold, and there are actually 4 districts in Montana that have produced more than 1,000,000 ounces of gold. The 4 districts that have produced more than 1,000,000 ounces of gold in Montana are Butte, Helena, Marysville, and Virginia City, Montana. Now let's start to dig in and figure out places where you can go to find some gold for yourself. We'll take a look at some of these very productive districts. Like I say, more than 27 districts that have produced more than 100,000 ounces each. And like I said, 4 districts that have produced more than 1,000,000 ounces each. So let's take a look at these districts, what their characteristics are, and where they're located, and a little bit more about how you can find some of that Montana gold.
So this is the MRDS, the USGS's database of gold occurrences in Montana. Now, the problem with this map is it doesn't differentiate the size. So if an area produced 1 million ounces, or if it produced 1/1,000,000th of an ounce, it gets the same blue dot. So, most of these are dots that really didn't produce anything significant. But if you look at the really big clump of areas where there's lots of dots close to each other in the southwest part of the state, that correlates well with the other maps that list districts that produced more than 10,000 ounces. So let's take a look at that map. And this is the map that shows the 54 districts in Montana that have produced more than 10,000 ounces each. And like I say, there's 54 of them. That's a lot of districts. And 27 of them have produced more than 100,000 ounces. And 4 of them have produced more than 1,000,000. But the bulk of the districts are concentrated here in the southwest part of the state. The names of the 54 districts are Bannock, Argenta, Bryant, Confederate Gulch, Whites Creek, Winston, Park, Raidersburg, Montana, French Creek, Georgetown, Warm Springs, North Moccasin, First Chance, Henderson Placers, Boulder Creek, Flint Creek, Clancy, Wicks, Basin and Boulder, Elkhorn, Teaser, Whitehall, Rimney, 10 Mile, Helena Last Chance, Missouri River, York, 7 Mile, Scratch Gravel, Marysville, Silver Creek, Stemple, Virginia Creek, McClellan, Lincoln, Libby, Sylvanite, Virginia City, Alder Gulch, Norris, Pony, Renova, Silver Star, Rochester, Tidal Wave, Sheridan, Cedar Creek, Trout Creek, 9 Mile Creek, Elk Creek, Coloma, Immigrant Creek, Jardine, Cook City, Little Rocky Mountains, Finn, Ophir, Pioneer, Zozelle, Hughes Creek, Butte, and Highland. All of these districts are covered in a USGS publication called Gold Districts of Montana, and they have a chapter on the state of Montana, and individually you can find out about each of these districts in that book, and it's available for a free download. I've also got a couple of maps of individual districts. This is the Virginia City, Alder Creek districts area in Montana. There's a couple other outward districts there. But I've marked the placer areas with yellow, and then the intrusive rocks, the granitic rocks in pink. And it's like I told you that the gold deposits are usually near or in these types of rocks, and you can see that there's a big body of it and there's gold deposits around it. But Virginia City, Alder Creek has been one of the more productive areas. It's produced more than 1,000,000 ounces of gold. I have another map here of the Bannock district, which has also been a really big producer, and you can see also the associated of the placers marked in yellow with the intrusive granodiorite type rocks marked in pink.
Now, like a lot of places, Montana there's a lot of mining claims, there's private property, And, just because you want to go find some gold, you just can't go anywhere you want to. But there's national forest lands and other lands that may be available to prospectors. And of course, there's mining clubs. And so by joining different clubs like the GPAA and some others, you can get access and resolve some of these property access problems, because for most miners in most areas, property access is a big issue. And so let's dig in and talk a little bit more about the mining claims and some of the issues resolved with that, and the potential clubs and things or places where you can go to find some gold in Montana.
Now, there is a public panning area at Libby Creek in an area near the town of Libby, and it's open, and whatever gold you find, you can keep for yourself. Now, there are a bunch of prospecting clubs in the state of Montana, quite a few of them. And these include the Beartooth Treasure Hunters and the Central Montana Prospectors Club, the Headwaters GPAA Southwest Montana Club, Montana Blackfoot River Gold Prospecting Club. There's a number of these ones. You can look them up on Google and find out which ones may be closer to you, or which ones may have claims in an area that you have access to. But the thing is that clubs is you can get access to areas that other people really can't. And so, especially for new prospectors, I recommend joining a club and getting your hands and feet wet doing that. And once you have the experience, then maybe you can work on learning the skill of looking at areas and finding which areas are under claim and which areas are not.
Now, wherever you go in Montana and whatever kind of equipment you're using, whether it's, mining with a sluice box or, with a pan or metal detector, whatever equipment you're using, finding gold is a skill. And too many guys think that, well, I'll buy myself a metal detector, or I'll buy a sluice box, and then I'll just go out and shovel gravel through and I'll get lots of gold. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. Even for the early guys, most places that are gold rich, you have spots that are rich and lots of spots that are poor. And so you need to know what you're doing in order to find gold. It's like a trade skill. Just owning a voltmeter doesn't make you an electrician. And so owning a metal detector doesn't make you a successful prospector. That's why I wrote a book called Fistful of Gold that has the skills in it, that teaches the skills that you need to know to be a successful prospector and to go out and find gold on your own. And I've also partnered with an outfit called High Plains Prospectors, and they're basically a full-line mail-order type equipment dealer, and they have everything from a simple gold pan, of course my book, all the way through whatever you can think of to expensive metal detectors and everything in between. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book and about High Plains right now. This is my book, Fistful of Gold. It's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know to go out and find gold for yourself. It distills down my 45 years of experience out in the field prospecting, as well as my degree in mine engineering. It's, like I say, an encyclopedia. There's a lot to it. It's over 250,000 words long, hundreds of pages with hundreds of illustrations, teaching you what you need to know about geology, about mining districts, about techniques of finding gold. It covers metal detectors, sluicing, panning, dry washing, high bankers, you name it, it's covered in there. It talks some about platinum and diamonds, but it's mostly about gold because gold is more widespread. It is not so much a book about where to find gold, but a book about how to find gold. Because even if you have a location where gold was mined in the past and you go out there, well, where should you look to be successful in your prospecting, to find the gold that's there? This is the book that's going to tell you that information. I spent most of 10 years writing this book, so I thought a long time about it. It's got, like I say, lots of information, and lots of illustrations, and I've had results from people who bought it. It's available on Amazon, but I recommend buying it through High Plains Prospectors, and I'll put a link in the description for buying this book through them. They have a better price than Amazon, and I have a special deal that I'll tell you a little bit more about, where you can get a 5% discount from the price even with that. On Amazon, the book rates a 4.7 out of 5, which means that of all the people that have bought it, they've been really highly satisfied, and I think you, if you buy my book, will be just as highly satisfied as well. Now let's talk a little bit more about High Plains Prospectors. They're a prospecting shop, a mail order prospecting shop that I've partnered with. The deal is that I can get you a 5% discount, a coupon code, and I'm going to put the code to that right here. It's just Chris Ralph, all caps with no space between Chris and Ralph. You put that in there as a discount code, and you'll get 5% off their already really good prices. I think it's a great deal where you win by getting a discount. I get a little percentage of that, and they get new business. So if you need prospecting supplies, High Plains is really the way to go. And I'll put information, like I say, in the description more about how you can work with them, because I'm working with them. They really are great guys, a great company. For even more information, I also have a website, and I'm going to show you my webpage and talk a little bit more about that right now.
This is my webpage. It's located at NevadaOutbackGems.com. You can Google it, or I have a link down in the description below. But there's lots of information here, miscellaneous stuff, pictures, some historic information as well, stories. It's got a lot of great fun stuff. You'll probably be interested in it.
Now, on all of my YouTube videos, I encourage you guys to ask questions. If you have thoughts, comments, suggestions for things that I ought to look at in my videos, things that you want to find out more about, and I answer 100% of my questions. There's not very many YouTubers out there that answer 100% of their questions. I'm one of the few. And so I will do my best to answer what you have. I mean, I only can write so much. Sometimes the answer is something where I'm going to recommend that you buy the book and read about it. I also ask that you subscribe to my channel, click the bell notification so that every time I come out with a new video, you'll be able to watch it. And like I say, I cover a huge amount of topics. I also have 250 videos that I've already done. And so you can go back through my catalog of videos on YouTube. I'm sure there'll be many videos there that you'll want to take a look at, especially if you have any interest in gold or platinum, diamonds, gemstones, geology, and that sort of stuff. My YouTube site is going to be right up your alley. So I'll see you again real soon. We'll be out in the field and back in the office at the whiteboard, and whether we're looking at gold or platinum, diamonds, gemstones, or other interesting geology, it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it, and we'll see you again real soon.